So when I was coming up, they didn't teach language until middle school, right? So it wasn't until seventh grade where I was offered the option of either Spanish or French. And everyone said, I think I picked Spanish for two reasons. One, I think at the time, kind of like how people view Mandarin now, at the time it was like, well, Spanish will be more useful, right? From a practical standpoint, because there's more people that speak it that are closer. And it's also easier than French, supposedly, right? That's what people would say.
Of course.
Oh, well, but French has all these weird, letters and it sounds so different. Spanish is so easy. Look at the alphabet. I learned later that wasn't the case. But yeah, that was it. And I was 12. So, I didn't have a very sophisticated decision-making process. I just kind of was like, okay, I'll do Spanish. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's cool. And what was that like when you started learning Spanish? Were you, I guess, you only had two options. So was it just kind of like, all right, this is my option? Or were you like, oh my God, I can't wait. I'm so excited. What was your temperament around, having to learn Spanish language?
At first I just thought it was kind of cool. It wasn't really something I was super interested in. I think the way it was presented was more of I don't know. It wasn't really presented in a way like, hey, this is a language you could speak. It was almost like a cultural exploration. Hey, learn about this culture. We'll teach you a couple words. It wasn't really like, we want you to become conversational in Spanish. So that's kind of how I took it. The way it was presented is how I received it. And I do remember, though, it's funny now you asked me because I haven't thought about this in a while. I think my Spanish teacher, I don't know what country she was from, but she had all of us pick Spanish names. So we all just kind of randomly picked a name in Spanish that began with the same letter as our name. I was Tula. That was my Spanish name in seventh grade. It was so weird. I've never heard anyone with that name now. I don't know where she got that from. I've never met anyone with that name. But yeah, I know we all had to pick Spanish names, and that's how she referred to us. And so, she was a native speaker. So I think I was fortunate in that regard that I actually did have a native Spanish speaker as a teacher, even though at the time I did not feel fortunate because it was harder to understand her. But yeah, that was really my first exposure, and I didn't really, take it too seriously. It was more of just sort of like a little interest. And I remember being pretty decent at it, but I think a lot of people have these stories of trauma of learning language with these mean teachers. I know I listened to the episode you had with Desta, and she said she had this evil French teacher. I didn't have that kind of thing. But I just, it was just sort of like a curiosity, but it wasn't anything that I sort of gravitated to as something special. It was just sort of like, oh, okay, this is another cool thing to learn in school. Kind of.
Yeah. I think a lot of us and several people that I've spoken to on this show kind of echo the same sentiment that their language study when they were in middle school was just another subject, or high school. It was just another subject. And I think that is really unfortunate that's, because I kind of felt that way too for most of my middle school, high school. It's just another subject. I have to pass. If I fail, I can't go home. And I'll be in big trouble if I fail this class. And it makes me think about my classmates around that time, because I took Spanish in middle school. And I think one of my teachers was a native Spanish speaker, and I also struggled to understand him. But we didn't really, and I'd be curious to know what you learned, because when I was in middle school, we didn't learn really anything comprehensive. We learned numbers, colors.
You learned the months, right? Because every day you would go, hoy es miércoles, right? No, I was.
¿Cuál es la fecha de hoy?
Sí, eso es todo. Yeah, you can start a conversation like that. What is the date? That never happened. Yeah, no, it was the same for me. It was just they would, again, that's why I feel like it was more of a cultural exploration class. How you learn art, but you survey generic things about art. I feel like that's how language has been treated traditionally in American education, which is why people don't really make the connection that this is a thing that I could speak in the real world, right? Because that's not how they teach it.
Right.
So yeah, no, I was just like you. It was I learned maybe hola señora, ¿cómo está usted? Robots. And then it was oh yeah, this is the day. And maybe, here's how to say a vegetable or fruit, but it wasn't anything very practical at all. So yeah, I had the same experience.
When was it, or maybe what was it that took you from the middle school Spanish of this is an exploration, this is cool, I'm doing it, to I want to integrate Spanish into my life?
That's interesting question, because there's actually, I don't know if there's one answer to it, but if I had to come up with like one defining moment, it actually was in the gym, which is going to probably sound weird. But I know at one point I was going to the gym. I hadn't ever gone to the gym in my life. And I had a friend who was trying to lose weight. And she goes, she wanted a gym buddy. I said, sure, I'll go with you. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know anything about working out, but like, sure, I'll give it a try. So I would go and like get on the machines and like try to lift a weight. I had no idea what I was doing. And then one day I saw like this dark room in the back, and it was like the group exercise room. And I was like, okay, well, what's going on over there? It looks like fun. There's like 40 women lined up, like waiting to go in. And I hear this music coming out, and I'm like, what is that? Like, everyone's like really pumped about this class. And I go in, like kind of go towards the back. I'm like, okay, what's going on here? And his little tiny short, like 4'8", like instructor gets up on the stage in front. She's like so energetic. And she's like, come on. And like, I found out later this was like Zumba, right? This like thing that had become this phenomenon, right? Like, and I was like in it. I was like, oh man. So I got hooked. Like I was going to Zumba every week. Like I'd be at the gym. I was one of the people in line. And I started listening to this music, and I wanted to know like, well, what is this about? And then I got like this beginner's confidence of thinking like, I know how to dance now, right? Which was not true.
Zumba will do that to people.
Yeah, like it gives you this false sense of confidence. I mean, because it was like they dimmed the light, so like you couldn't really, see how bad you were in the mirror. But like, so like I said, you know what? I'm doing Zumba. I know this music. I'm going to go take salsa classes. I'm going to go dance, right?
Cool.
And that's when I found out I didn't know how to dance salsa, especially not with a partner. But the advantage that Zumba gave me was I knew the rhythms. I started to become familiar with the music. And so slowly I developed this sort of interest in the language, because I was singing these songs and I didn't know what they meant. And I said, I know some Spanish. I should know this. And I didn't get it. I didn't understand anything. So that combined with the fact that I started to travel, like the first time I left the country, I went to Panama and I didn't understand what was going on there. And I was like, man, this is not okay. Like I spent all this time in school, and supposedly I learned Spanish, but I don't understand anything that anyone's saying. I like this music. Like I want to learn what's going on. What do I do? So I think just kind of through that process of deciding to recommit myself to learning the language for real, right? Learning it conversationally, and then traveling and dancing, it just sort of all came together and it became a part of my life. So for me, I think it was more of like what I would call more of a cultural immersion, because it's not like Spanish was this thing I was trying to learn that was apart from my life. It became a part of who I am. It's like, these are the songs that I sing when I'm having a bad day, or when I'm celebrating, or when I'm about to go out for the weekend. Like I want to hear bachata, I want to hear reggaeton, I want to hear salsa. So like, this was just who I was. It wasn't something I was trying to do and trying to learn. So it just, for me, it was natural. It sort of just became a part of my life through the music and through the dancing and travel.
Right. Had you not heard those styles of music before, or were you just in that moment where you heard them and they inspired